This just in, all-out war has broken out on the Shelf Space Discord, all due to a little friendly competition. Stay tuned for more news about how the Snowmisers are going to crush everybody else in this competition. Welcome to the Ponderings of Pete, where we will crush everybody else beneath our feet because the Snowmisers will rule. If you didn't know, I'm taking place in the Reindeer Games hosted by Jessie May over at the Shelf Space Discord. This readathon was created by Jessie May along with the other mods at Shelf Space. They went ahead and created this lovely graphic for the prompts, shown here, and I will be endeavoring to complete every single one of them. I will be on Team Snowmiser as part of this. We are captained by the charismatic Library of Alexandria. The other team members I have are Gregory, Alicia, and Lyra, who are all wonderful booktubers, and you should go check them out. And Patty is a bookstagrammer. And then we also have Iman, who is not a booktuber or a bookstagrammer, I believe. I could be wrong. Check down in the description below. I will link all those booktubes and bookstagrams down below. They're all wonderful people, and you should go check them out. So this month, I plan on reading 12 books, one for each of the prompts, because I'm ambitious. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to have to read an average of 214 pages a day to read all 6,600 pages that are part of these 12 books. Now, the way this works is for every 100 pages that I read, I get 10 points for my team. And for every prompt I complete, I get an additional 5 points. So far, I'm actually hitting my average, which is great. So some days I'll read more, some days I'll read less, depending on work, depending on play, depending on whatever happens during the day. Am I going to get through this? Absolutely, I have confidence in myself. I have the holiday coming up, much more time to do things, right? So the first prompt that I'll be tackling, well, it's not going to be in order, but this is the first prompt on the list, is Christmas Tree. Read a book that is set in a forest. The book I chose for this was Master and Apprentice. So this is a little bit of a finagly one. There's definitely a forest in it. And so from what I know, there's a planet they go on that is, has a forest on it that they go through. This is also a buddy read for a Star Wars Book Club server. Yeah, that's kind of why I put this on. This was one of the ones I was already planning to read that I was able to wiggle into here. I'm really excited to read this. This takes place before Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, because you got good old Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn and Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I get to see them in book form, which is going to be great. Really excited for this one. It has a few things to do with where Qui-Gon's extremeness, what's the term? Qui-Gon was a bit of a radical. That's why he wasn't on the Jedi Council. He was supposed to be, but they offered him a place, but he didn't want it, I believe it was. Because he believed that the Council should be ruled more by the Force and the guidings of the Force than they were. So this kind of delves into that. It delves into the prophecy, the Chosen One prophecy a little bit too. And it is part of Disney's canon, so you can read it without being confused about legends or anything like that. So the second prompt is Santa's Elves. Read a book with elves, fae, or other magical beings. Now, there's a few that float around the Shelf Space Discord, like Akatar and Akamath, that I'm not going to touch. I'm sorry. These don't interest me. So I instead chose Guards. I've been waiting to get into some of the better Discworld for a while. I read Color of Magic a while ago. I honestly couldn't tell you what was in it because I was like, but Alan at the Library of Alexandria has been hyping up Discworld and where people should start in Discworld, and evidently book 1, or the first book that was published, is not the place you should start, which I'm totally okay with because I'm willing to give it another shot. It is an absurdist fantasy, so essentially it takes fantasy and makes fun of fantasy within a book, which is cool, and there's magical beings. So it fits the prompt, and I get to read it, which is great. And it's the first in the kind of Night Watch series that's within the greater Discworld There's like 40 or 50 books. I'm excited to read this. It's still in the mail. I don't have my physical copy yet. So the third prompt is Christmas lights. Read a book with red or green on the cover. So this is another one that was previously on my TBR for this month that I was able to finagle in. House of Chains. That's green. Last I checked, unless I'm going colorblind, which I don't think I am. That's actually kind of an interestingly graphic. There's wolves eating a giant. That's nice. There's no blood, but interesting. Book 4 in Malazan, Book of the Fallen. I have to finish Memories of Ice first, but House of Chains picks up where Dead House Gates left off. Yes, you heard right. It skips around in the series. The timeline of Malazan, Book of the Fallen, and the order of the books is kind of like the first 5 go back and forth between like 2 different conflicts, which is really interesting, but they all stem from Gardens of the Moon. So House of Chains continues the fight in a desert, I believe. There's a rebellion in a desert this time. I'm really excited. I'm really loving Malazan so far. I'm hype. So the 4th prompt is called Naughty List. They decided to read a book with a unlikable protagonist. And that was really easy because after our discussions on the Shelf Space Discord, it is quite obvious that many people do not like James Holden. I think he's okay. He has his moments where I definitely don't like him. So yeah, I'm going to read Abaddon's Gate. This is another one that I was planning on reading already, and I was able to squeeze in there. Really great space opera series. We might actually leave the solar system. I don't think so. Maybe. Some solar system shenanigans. Cool. Prompt number 5 was Christmas caroling. Was this watch a musical? No. It was read a book that is an own voices novel. Now, when I first read this prompt, I had no idea what that was. Full disclosure. And did some research, and basically it's, you know, a book written by somebody that's kind of like in the culture of what they're writing. So the one that I found that I actually had and I was looking forward to reading was The Poppy War. This was written by R.F. Kuang and is actually kind of, she took some of China's history with the Opium Wars and stuff like that, and that time period, not stuff like that, and turned it into a fantasy novel with magic and all this other cool stuff. I'm excited to read this. This was on my long-term TBR, but now it's getting bumped up to this next month's TBR. Looking forward to reading this. I've heard a lot of good things, especially from Shelf Space Discord. They've loved this series. I think they're all currently reading the 3rd in the series. So if I really wanted to continue after this month, which I probably will, I could actually read Dragon Republic next month, which would be really cool. We shall see. So this one, prompt number 7, was Homemade Present. Participate in a Shelf Space buddy read. So as far as I know, the main buddy read that's going on is Promise of Blood, which will have a live show in beginning of January, hosted by co-hosted by Jessie May and Library of Alexandria. This is one of the books that Library of Alexandria likes to tout, including Great Coasts and Senlin, I believe. I've also had a few friends that have pushed me to do it, and it has a blurb by Brandon Sanderson on the cover. Just plain awesome. So you know how marketing works? Marketing works. Essentially, what I know about this is there's gunpowder magic. Gunpowder mages, sniff gunpowder, not cocaine, and gain magic powers. I am excited for this, despite all the drug references. So the previous prompt was actually called Family Holiday Time. This prompt is Homemade Present. Read a self-published book by a self-published author. And the book I picked for this was Orconomics. This book involves money of some sorts and fantasy. 2 of my, well, I'm an accountant, so anytime the fantasy book and economics or anything along these lines comes into contact together, it makes me kind of excited because I know a thing or two about money. From the looks of it, this, which is a satire, is a riff on all fantasy tropes. So, professional heroes kill and loot deadly monsters every day. Monsters' hordes are claimed, bought by corporate interests and sold off to plunder funds long before the Heroes Guild actually kills the beasts. You know what that sounds like? Derivatives. Not math derivatives, completely different type of derivative. Financial derivatives. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. It's going to make your brain hurt because they're designed that way. But financial derivatives in a fantasy world, that just sounds so cool. In a very nerdy accountant way. I think this sounds really cool. I'm excited to read this. I look forward to sharing my thoughts on this. Prompt number 8 is to read a short story or novella. I didn't feel like reading Dawn Treader again because I've already read it at least twice, and I felt like that'd be a cop-out, even though you'll see. So I got a grab bag, essentially, from a local bookstore this month, and it came with 2 different sci-fi short story collections. So I'm going to be reading The Many Worlds of Science Fiction, edited by Ben Bova. Do I know anything about this book? No, I know absolutely nothing, besides what it tells me on the inside cover. Many of the fascinating worlds of science fiction are explored in this collection, which ranges from the high adventure among the stars of Andre Norton's All Cats Are Grey, to a college campus around the turn of the next century, that is in Harlan Ellison's Angry, Silent in Gehenna. Well, that sounds fun. College campuses. I recently came from one of those. We shall see how this goes. It's only like 200 pages, so it's, sizable amount, 25 points. We'll see. But I am excited to read this in my own way, because nothing's better than a book you know absolutely nothing about. So many possibilities. Prompt number 9. He sees you when you're sleeping. Read a thriller, horror, or suspense book. The book I picked for this is actually a buddy read on another Discord server, because I'm a part of so many, and it will be Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. I've heard a lot of people gushing about this book. I really wanted to fit this in, so I did. And I got approval, and I'm filling it in as a suspense book because there is kidnapping involved, roughly. So it's kind of like a sketch it in, but I really wanted to read it, so guess what? I am. And it's gonna be great. It involves, from what I've heard, essentially a bank robber ends up taking hostage like 12 different people that all have like their own problems going on, and it turns into some sort of therapy session. But it's a very character-focused book, very, hey, let's work out your problems type of thing through this book, which is really cool. I've heard lots of good things about Frederick Bachman as an author, and I'm excited to actually read a book by him. So the next prompt is checking it twice. Reread a book you've previously read, previously DNF'd, or taken a break from. So the book for this I read last month, and I really loved it. It was actually my most anticipated read of the year, and that is Rhythm of War. I really love this book, and I want to see if it lives up to my own internal hype from the first time, because right now it's my favorite book in Stormlight Archive. I'm also looking forward to going through this part by part and hopefully doing a spoiler talk on it, so stay tuned for those videos if I ever get to them, which I probably will, because it's holiday season, right? So prompt 11 is called We Three Kings, and it is to read a book with a crown in it or a crown on the title. And for this prompt I chose Promise of Blood. No, this is not a mistake. As an eagle-eyed viewer might have noticed, I had to do some reshooting because of my changes to my TBR, and this was one of them, and I decided just to film this one and keep the other one in. So the book I'm actually reading for stocking stuffer, family holiday time, which is to read a Shelf Space buddy read, is Theft of Swords, which is by Michael J. Sullivan. I believe it was previously self-published and now is picked up by a major author. So that's always exciting to support self-publishers, people that have self-published in the past, because it shows how viable that is to the market. I'm excited to read this. I know next to nothing about this. I've heard some people say they really like Michael J. Sullivan. So, it's an exciting book on the horizon. So the very last prompt is called Under the Mistletoe. Read a book with romance in it. And I found a book with romance. I actually carried it over from last month. and that will be Memories of Ice. There is some romance in it. It is not primarily romance, but there is some romance. And I decided to slip this in the prompt because I did really want to finish reading this book and make sure my pages count. So I actually already finished reading this by the time I'm filming this, and I absolutely loved it. Definitely my favorite Malazan book so far. And currently I'm in the middle of reading House of Chains, so we will see how that goes. Well, that is the gigantic mound of books that I'm going to be reading this month. Good luck to me. It's going to be a tough month. As I said, I have to read an average of 214 pages a day, which so far I'm actually keeping up with, which I'm surprised at. So look out. The snow mices are coming for you. Have a great day, night, lunar cycle, day cycle, wheel, whatever you want to call it. Have a great rest of it.